Judge!
Hello and welcome to the Cinema Judge. To all my regulars, welcome back. If you're new to the show, welcome aboard. And if this is your first time listening, let me just give you a brief synopsis. We love movies. We like to share movies. We don't sit here and tell you not to see a movie or even to see a movie. We're not here to yell at movies, criticize, any of that stuff. This is a movie oasis, a place where you can come and learn about a movie or TV show with zero interruptions from the outside world, because the world is a messy, noisy place. I just like to talk about movies and give you the evidence, if you will. Me being the judge, you being the jury, it's up to you to make up your own mind. I'm not going to try to sway your mind. Who am I? We've all had different road trips. I'm here to just give you the evidence. Because I hate it when somebody tells me not to see something. Like, who are you to tell me? You don't know me, just like I don't know you. This is a place where you can just get away and talk movies. Because any movie is somebody's favorite movie. But today, approaching the bench, we have She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. This is the latest Marvel Disney Plus series. And here it is in a nutshell. Jennifer Walters, played by Tatiana Maslany, she's a hardworking attorney. She's 30-something-year-old out there trying to live her life. And she just so happens to have a cousin named Bruce Banner, played by Mark Ruffalo. And coincidence as it is, they're having me driving around in the car. They get in a car accident. You know, how things that get happen, she gets some of his blood on her in her system. Because she gets cut, he gets cut. And that being said, ta-da! She becomes a She-Hulk. But here's the rub. She doesn't want anything to do with it. She wants to be a lawyer. That's her jam. That's what she's good at. That's her passion. But she, no matter what she does, she is a Hulk. It's so creative, so fun, and original. The casting is perfect. Everything about this show is enjoyable. It has great humor and great storyline. It discusses a lot of stuff. But it also breaks the fourth wall. If you don't know what that is, breaking the fourth wall is this. The main actor will turn to the camera and talk to us. And it's just so refreshing. If done right, it could be a really great tool. And they really nail that right down the pipe there. Because sometimes when some shows do it, you're like, whatever. But they really know how to walk that line at Marvel. The writers, everybody involved. That's what it's about in a nutshell. But now, if you want to watch the TV version of this, go to Bloomington, Minnesota's webpage. bit as in bit.ly/cinemajudge. It's bit.ly/cinemajudge. If that doesn't work for some reason, just go to Bloomington, Minnesota's webpage, and several shows will show up, including this one. And one more thing before we start up, I just want to give a quick shout out to the people who work at the Purple Store at the Mall of America. I'll talk more about them at the end of the show, but I just want to say that real quick before I start off. You guys are awesome. Here's a trailer for She-Hulk, Attorney at Law.
Wow! Jesus, what the hell, man?
Still in control, no overwhelming feelings of rage.
No! A normal amount of rage!
You do revert back to Gen form when you sleep.
Was the air horn really necessary?
For comedy, absolutely. This is a multi-year journey you're about to embark on.
Yes!
Yeah. Who's your best friend?
Nikki.
Spandex. Spandex is your best friend. Being a Hulk asks for balance. You have so much more to learn. Yes!
So I'm clearly nailing it at all these things.
If you want to go back to your life as a lawyer, I respect that.
He doesn't mean that.
More and more eccentric superhumans are coming out of the woodwork. We are going to launch a division for them, and I want the She-Hulk to be the face of it.
Jennifer Walters. Namaste.
I have a serious conflict of interest. This man tried to kill my cousin, Bruce.
Yeah, that's quite all right.
Oh. People only care because I'm representing Emil Blonsky.
I think they care because they're like, hey, that girl's green. Jen, do your thing. God, I really like this outfit.
I'm not proud of this.
Miss Walters, we answer to a higher power. Our universe is on the edge of a precipice.
I am a lawyer. We do things by the book.
The Book of Ashanti.
No, the Book of American laws.
Whether you like it or not, you're now a superhero.
Let's do this. You know that friend you had in high school who was way cooler than you were, attractive, got all the attention from everyone? Hello.
I think I'm jealous. Is that what I'm feeling?
Now, coming up first, we're going to hear from the head writer, Jessica Gao. And I love this interview. She talks about when she first came across this comic, how she felt and what she experienced. And that's what I love these kind of interviews. You get in the head of the writer, because a lot of times you think, okay, did they just get the script and they just, or were they offered the script and they said, write it? No, she was aware of it long ago and she was a fan of it. And she goes into detail of why she likes the character, what it meant to her. It's just really a great interview. Here it is.
She-Hulk was always my favorite character from Marvel Comics, and it was really the John Byrne run that made me fall in love with her, because I loved how irreverent she was. I love how funny she was. I love how lighthearted and fun. There was this levity to the comics that was like a breath of fresh air, because traditionally superhero comics are, pretty dramatic, very action-oriented, and sometimes can get very heavy. It's a lot of serious men dealing with serious issues. And so it was just so fun and refreshing to see this, hilarious, like sassy 6'7" green woman who was saving the world, but also making quips, and not taking it too seriously, because it also felt very real that somebody would deal with. It felt very human that somebody would deal with like trauma and a scary situation, and adrenaline with humor. And of course, there was the fourth wall breaking that I loved, and I love that she would argue with John Byrne. I love that she argued with Renee, the editor. I love that she made fun of comic book tropes.
Now, coming up next, we're going to hear from one of the directors of this series. Because like most series like this, there's several directors. The director that we're going to hear from is Kat Coiro. And she's also going to talk about the impact that She-Hulk had on her even when she was a young girl.
My love of She-Hulk developed when I was a young girl, and I saw the cover of a She-Hulk in a sea of male comic book heroes, and I immediately related to her and wanted to be her. And I'm so grateful to be a part of bringing She-Hulk to the modern generation.
Now, coming up next, I'm going to play two interviews back to back because they both talk about the same concept. The first is the head writer. She's going to talk about what the story of this is about, and also we're going to hear from the director again.
She-Hulk is a legal comedy, and people can expect just that. 30 minutes of fun, funny, law-related stories, but also really at its core, the show is a story about a young woman who is a working professional who is trying to deal with all the different aspects of a normal 30-something's life, working, relationships, friends, extended family. But on top of all that, she is also unwillingly now a superhero, and she has to deal with all the ramifications of what that means.
She-Hulk is a real blend of genres. It's very funny and leads with comedy, but it's also got elements of drama and action and suspense, and it also fits visually into the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
And they nailed it. I mean, that's a great way to describe this show. But coming up next, we're going to hear from She-Hulk herself, Tatiana Maslany. And she has talked about joining the Marvel Universe. But can you even imagine that? Yes, what an opportunity. But then you realize, I have to take on this iconic role. All eyes are going to be on me. I mean, for me, I can't even believe the stress that would be at. But I'm sure that fuels talented actresses like Tatiana. Just say, okay, here I go. I'm going to do this. So she's going to talk about joining the Marvel Universe. And then she's going to talk a little bit more about the story.
I feel a mixture of like very nervous and very excited to enter the MCU. I think people are going to really like She-Hulk, and she's very different for the MCU. So that feels very fun to get to bring a character in who has such a different energy. She-Hulk is a lot of things. Mostly it's a half-hour sitcom, but so it's very comedic. But it also digs into all kinds of different genres. It sort of doesn't stay in one place for too long, and we definitely get a sense of, there's the action, there's the sort of Marvel big plot set pieces kind of element to it. But then it's also like weirdly goes into like kitchen sink drama sometimes, which is very fun.
Now, coming up next, we're going to play a featurette. Now, this is what a featurette is in a nutshell. The studios, they send us this pre-packaged little, movie type thing summing up this show. And they insert in here interviews like from the actors, the producers, the executive producers talking about the show. And when in between those interviews, they have scenes of on-the-set footage, like behind the scenes, and also clips from the show. And they just put it into one little couple-minute package and say, here it is. So just so you know, that's what's going on.
She-Hulk! 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 She-Hulk!
It's true. I am a Hulk.
And action!
Jennifer Walters is an attorney who has accidentally taken in the Hulk's blood and has become...
Like a chick Hulk.
A She-Hulk?
Exactly.
She-Hulk, attorney at law. That's got a nice ring to it.
That name better not stick.
There's something so surreal and so funny about a giant 6'7" Hulk in the courtroom.
It was about putting a real human being into these absurd situations.
It's just like as cool and edgy as we can get away with.
Girl, your ass looks crazy right now.
It's something that you think you knew, which is law shows, and something that you think you know, which is Marvel shows, smashed together.
This show is so much fun.
It all has this tongue-in-cheek, self-referential thing going on.
In the comics, she broke the fourth wall and was super meta.
Just want to make sure that you don't think this is one of those cameo every week type of shows. Well, except Bruce. And Blonsky. And Wong.
She spent all this time becoming a lawyer, and this idea of being a superhero is not appealing to her.
Being a superhero is a trial by fire.
Oh, I'm not a superhero. I just want to be a normal, anonymous lawyer.
There is no going back to what you were before. Who's gonna protect the world if not people like you?
This is expanding the definition of what a Marvel Studios production can be.
This is a radical, revolutionary show.
Can we get some shots, please? It's an emergency.
See what I'm saying? A whole lot's going on there. This show is just full of fun and action, and you know what I mean if you've seen it, and if you haven't, I really think you'd enjoy it. Now, up next, I'm going to play a couple interviews back to back to back, because first we're going to hear from the director, and I love what she talks about here, because often when things happen like for the first time or stuff of that nature, say, oh, this is the first time that this female character's part of the universe, or things of that nature. And I love how she says, maybe one day we won't have to say that sentence, oh, this is the first time this female character, etc., etc., etc. Maybe one day it'll just be common knowledge. It won't even have to be pointed out. It's just, this person is a superhero. They don't even have to say it's a female or whatever the individual may be. And then we're going to hear from the head writer, and she's going to talk about a little bit more about the character Jennifer Walters. And then right after that, we're going to go back to the director, and she too is talking a little bit more about the character.
I think it's about time that She-Hulk joined the female superheroes of the MCU, and I hope she's part of a movement to stop even saying female superheroes and just call them what they are, superheroes.
Jennifer Walters is your average 30-something woman. She is a working professional with a career and great friends, a very frustrating family. And she has, but on top of all this, she gets without asking for it, she gets Hulk powers from her cousin Bruce Banner, because the two of them are in the very unique position of being in a family with two Hulks.
Jennifer Walters is a lawyer, and her career is really everything. It's what she's worked so hard to attain, and she's very resistant to being a superhero because she doesn't want it to disrupt the life that she's created for herself.
That's what I really like about this show. It's a character who'd rather be a lawyer. What their passion is, their dream isn't to be a superhero. In that vein, we're going to hear from Tatiana, who is She-Hulk. She's going to talk about her wanting to be a lawyer. That's why she has attorney at law, written on her, slogan. And then we're going to hear from the head writer also discussing that concept about a woman who wants to do what she wants to do, but this is an inconvenience. Like, well, I don't want to become a Hulk. This is messing up with my jam. And then also the directors after that talking about the same concept, how strong she is as an individual, not needing or wanting this kind of power. And then after that, we're going to hear from Tatiana again. And she's going to talk about what happens to make her become She-Hulk.
Jennifer Walters is a lawyer, and her career is kind of her whole identity. It's sort of, I think, why She-Hulk is called She-Hulk Attorney at Law is because Jen wanted that there. Jen's like, I'm an attorney first. And yeah, it's incredibly important to her. She loves her job. She loves what she's able to do with her job, how she's able to help people. And it's definitely the way that she has planned her life out.
When Jen Walters first gets her Hulk powers, she is not psyched. Just as I feel any woman in her position would probably not be psyched, because she didn't ask for it. She didn't plan for it, and it's a complication in her life. And if she could return the powers, she absolutely would, because this was not what she wanted.
Jennifer Walters becomes She-Hulk after an accident that accidentally transfuses some of her cousin's blood into her blood. And she feels that these superpowers have been thrust upon her, and she really wants nothing to do with being a superhero. But life doesn't always work out exactly the way you want it to, and she ends up having to become a superhero.
So Jennifer becomes She-Hulk when her and her cousin Bruce, who is the Hulk, get in a car accident, and she's trying to help him out and gets his blood inside of her body. And obviously his blood is hulked up. And so she becomes She-Hulk. She wants nothing to do with this idea. She wants nothing to do with being a Hulk. Bruce is trying to bring her into the world and train her, and she's truly the most resistant to it. Yeah, it couldn't be further from the plan that she had for her life.
We have a clip for you next. Now, in this clip, this is the car accident that creates the whole transfusion situation. What's happening here is this. They're driving down the road, Jennifer Walters and her cousin, Bruce Banner. And I love this conversation because here she's talking to Bruce Banner, giving him her theory about Captain America. She's like, this is what I think it is because, History Channel told me or whatever. I like the reality of the whole situation of having, she knows who he is and she's just trying to get all the dirt of this is what I think is going on. And it's just really kind of just a fun moment. But then while they're doing that, this flying saucer type thing appears in front of them right in the middle of the road as they're driving down. And they say, look out, and they veer off the side of the road and then they twist and turn and crash down there. So when it goes slightly quieter in this clip, that's when it's going slow motion where they're showing him inside the car and they're upside down and things are falling down around them. And then it crash. Here's that scene.
So, back to what I was saying before, my theory.
Oh, God.
Steve Rogers did not have a girlfriend before he went into the service.
Says who?
The History Channel. So he becomes Captain America. And from that moment on, a symbol of America, he is rushed to the front lines. He becomes a war hero. Then he is frozen in ice.
Right.
So, based on everything you've told me,
Mm-hmm.
after he gets unfrozen, he goes from world-threatening disaster to world-threatening disaster. That's when he's not a fugitive from the law. right? So it seems like he was pretty busy.
All you're doing is repeating everything that I've already told you about my friend and colleague.
Obviously, Captain America was a virgin.
Look out!
Now, coming up next, we're going to hear from Tatiana, who plays She-Hulk, and she's going to talk about the relationship between her and Bruce Banner, that it's more than just like cousins, it's more brother-sisterly like. And then immediately after that, you're going to hear from the director talking about their relationship also.
Jen Walters and Bruce are cousins, but they are closer to like a brother-sister, kind of like constantly taking the piss out of each other, but also love each other very much kind of vibe. And Bruce sort of, you know, has been in this Hulk world longer than she has and has a lot of ideas about it and has gone about it in this very like clinical sort of like psychological way. And Jen shows up as She-Hulk and is much easier with it. She's able to deal with it, no problem. And that causes him to be very annoyed with her. So it's a fun dynamic.
Jen Walters and Bruce Banner have a very sibling-like relationship. It's kind of like a big brother, little sister vibe. And when the two actors got together, they had such a playful energy, and we really capitalized on that and let it inform the script.
Now, Tatiana is up next, and she's going to talk about working with Mark Ruffalo and how kind he was, how just inviting he was. And it's just really fun to hear that, because sometimes you hear about actors and actresses or anybody working together, they're like, whatever, it's just, great to be here. But it's really kind of cool to hear how just inviting he was. And then after that, you're going to hear from the director. And then she talks about how, because these two share a very unique character, like not many people have played this role, they had a common understanding, a common ground. And it also reflected in their the characters they were playing, because there are no more other Hulks. So both in real life and in character-wise, they both are like understanding each other's situation.
Mark Ruffalo is amazing. He's an actor who I've always looked up to, always admired. And he was like the most welcoming in terms of on set. He just, he's always up to play. He always wants to be in the moment and find new things. And we improvised a lot, and we found like weird, little digressions off of the script that ended up in this in the final product. And that's just a testament to how open he is and how playful he is. And yeah, he was just great to work with.
Mark and Tatiana talked on set about how wearing the gray mocap suits with the camera in the face made them feel other and kind of outside of the other actors and outside of the crew. And they really used that to bond. And it's a little bit of, life imitating art, art imitating life. When you watch them together, they are the only two people in the world who understand what it's like to play the Hulk. And the Hulks are the only two Hulks who understand what it is to be a Hulk.
Now, speaking of Mark Ruffalo, we're going to hear from him next. This is coming from the red carpet, so you're going to hear a lot of background noise. It's because they're interviewing him on the red carpet. And he just talks about how excited he is about this role and in working with Tatiana.
It's really exciting, and it's time for She-Hulk, and it was great to be able to pass the baton, although she didn't need to pass the baton. She came with her own baton, and it's been a lot of fun. It's so much fun to do.
Now we have a clip for you. Now in this clip, we have Bruce Banner and Jennifer Walters. He's trying to teach her like all the little details about being a Hulk. They're on this cliff, the ocean's below them, and there's like trees everywhere. And like he's trying to do stuff like, okay, balance and control. Like he's doing this little like mini, like, I don't know, handstand type deal. And then they cut to her and she's just doing all this fancy stuff like, wah, this is easy. And he starts trying to like, okay, try to do this. And he slams his fist on the ground to say, look at that. That's what you could do. She does it, a little bit better. And then he just kind of pushes her off the cliff, and then she, flies back up and says, you know what? How's this going to help me be a lawyer? And then he's like, well, we could have fun too. Then they cut to them being at the bar and how much they metabolize stuff differently and all that stuff. But it's just a fun sequence showing them bonding and just showing the in and outs of what, she has to go through now to become a Hulk or all that kind of stuff.
Being a Hulk asks for balance.
Commotion, we causing no commotion.
It's easy.
Little punk!
So I'm clearly nailing it at all of these things. When am I ever going to use this as a lawyer?
Jen, when you have powers like this, it's like putting a target on your back and the backs of all the people you care about.
Oh, cool. Yet another way my life is ruined. Thanks, Bruce.
All right, all I've been doing is showing you the downsides of being a Hulk, but there are a few upsides. Our bodies metabolize alcohol at an incredibly fast rate, which means that we can drink so much and not get drunk. All buzz, no barf.
That's good.
We're going to hear a little bit more from Mark Ruffalo. He's on the red carpet again, and he just talks about him working on this project and how wonderful it was working with an all-female cast and crew, that whole situation. It's a real fun interview.
I mean, we have Kat Coiro, who is our amazing director, and had a vision for it. Then it was an all-female team. I've never worked on a movie or TV show that was all-female, and it was amazing.
We're going to hear next from Ginger Gonzaga, and she plays Nikki, the best friend of She-Hulk. And in this interview, she talks about just being part of this Marvel experience, and then she talks a little bit more about her character and the relationship she has with Jennifer Walters.
Yeah, Marvel is cool in that it plays around with a bunch of different genres, and I think that's what always keeps it really fresh. And I feel very grateful that She-Hulk leans very heavily into satire and comedy, but also still has a bunch of the action and the drama and is really cinematic. But it's cool to be like the fresh and new funny thing in the Marvel universe. I play Nikki Ramos on She-Hulk, and Nikki is rad. And she's very fun and free and fast-talking, and she's kind of like the best friend who pushes you out of your comfort zone, but then you don't regret it later because you reap the benefits. Nikki is Nikki's very close with Jennifer Walters. They are true friends who care about each other, who have ups and downs like any friends do. But she's a good balance for Jen because Jen likes to follow the rules and Nikki doesn't believe in any rules and loves to be a little more reckless. So I'm always encouraging Jen to, do wilder things when it comes to dating. Or my favorite thing, obviously, is for her to encourage Jen to turn into She-Hulk, which I'm able to do a lot. So I like to joke that if She-Hulk ever saves the world, let's not forget that Nikki convinced her to do so.
Now, we all know chemistry is impossible just to be manufactured. Often it's natural. And there's some shows or TV or movies, you watch it and you're like, ooh, I don't really feel it. But in this particular show with Nikki and Jennifer, they had this great bond, this great connection. So this next interview, we're going to hear from their head writer, and she's going to talk about the character of Nikki and also, Jennifer Walters and how they're different, but they really do work together. But then in real life, they had such a great connection and they work so good together. And it's just cool to hear that from a head writer because that must make it a lot easier when you're writing a script or when you see them on set. They're just going to nail it. And then after that, we're going to hear from Tatiana, and she's going to talk about just how quick-minded and just sharp Ginger is and how fun it was to work with her. These are just some really cool interviews.
Jen and Nikki are ride or die best friends. They're not only work best friends because they work together, but they are outside of work, like in their personal lives, best friends as well. And they, like a lot of classic friendships, they kind of are opposites and they have very different energies that balance each other out. Like Jen is like very much a rule follower who, is a planner. And Nikki is just a complete freewheeling, free spirit who loves to do things on impulse impulse and, follow whatever feels good and follow her gut instincts. And the two of them really balance each other out that way. Tatiana and Ginger were so good, had such wonderful chemistry. Like, they instantly felt like best friends. And they are friends outside of the show now, but, when they first met, like, instant chemistry, and they really both, understood innately, like, how important it was to portray this very, very real type of layered, realistic female friendship. And also they were so good at improvising with each other too, that I think that also kind of lended this vibe of like, oh, these are real friends just hanging out and we get to watch them.
Nikki is played by Ginger Gonzaga, who has the fastest brain of anybody I've ever met in my entire life. She's the most amazing improviser, and she brings this incredible, joyful, like, recklessness to Nikki that is very opposite of Jen. There's a lot of question around how these two could be best friends, but they do make so much sense together because I think they really balance each other out. And she's also Jen's paralegal, so they work together and they play together. They're always together. They're very much like sisters. And Nikki's always trying to draw Jen out of her shell and pull her into the world and make her take risks and put herself out there, whether that's in her dating life or whatever it is, or owning this power of She-Hulk. She really tries to encourage Jen to live fully. And that manifests in her grabbing her phone and swiping on about 500 guys on Matcher and causing a lot of chaos.
And on these next two interviews, again, I'm not going to interrupt them. I'm going to let these ladies just roll. Because first, Ginger talks about working with Tatiana, then Tatiana talks about working with Ginger.
Working with Tatiana Maslany was a dream, and so honestly, like everything that I crave as an actor. We had met each other at a party, and we both respected each other's work, and we had said that we wanted to work with each other one day, and then the next thing, at least, that I booked was this show. So it wasn't hard to play her best friend. She's instantly someone I respect and appreciate and have so much fun with. I trust her because she's very honest and real, and that's what I like. I like really brave, fearless actors. I like to feel comfortable being really brave and free as an actor. So it was just kind of a match made in heaven as far as, like, especially two women that are meant to play best friends. It was this endlessly easy thing that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, Ginger is like just the fastest brain in the biz. She is so funny, and I'd been a fan of her before we, got to work together. I remember doing the audition with her, and it was so fun, and she so, like, dommed me in this great way that only Nikki could dom, Jennifer. Like, she really, like, she just ran circles around me. And by the end of the audition, I was blushing because it was so, like, because she was just so stunning as an actor and just so fun. And I just felt so, like, alive, playing with her. And she was like, on the Zoom, she was like, "Are you wearing blush?" And I was like, "Yeah, I put on some blush or whatever." But really, it was just that I had gone hot. I'd gone heated with the Ginger of it all.
Now, one of the villains in this show is Titania. In Titania, she has superpowers and she's an influencer. So in the next couple interviews, we're going to hear from their head writer and the director talking about that character.
Titania is a villain that is very specific to She-Hulk in the comics. And that was one of the reasons that I really wanted to use her, because there are so many villains in the comics that She-Hulk had to share with, other characters. And Titania was one of the few villains that was actually very unique to She-Hulk. On our show, she is, in our modern world, she is an influencer, which I feel like is something that a modern day villain would very easily want to harness because of the reach and also the control of narrative that you have when you are very media savvy. And just like in the comics, Titania is very, very fixated on She-Hulk for a lot of personal reasons. And she becomes kind of this bug that is constantly buzzing around She-Hulk and trying to take her down.
Titania is a very evil Instagram influencer / villainess and a new addition to the MCU. Jamila Jamil was the only choice for me. I'd worked with her before on Marry Me, and I knew that she could bring reality to a character that is so out there.
Now, speaking of that character, we're going to hear from Jamila Jamil, and you might recognize her from the TV show The Good Place and also from the 2022 film Marry Me. And she's from the red carpet, so once again, there's going to be some background noise, but she's just going to talk about working in this universe and just being part of this project.
It's just amazing to be here on this road surrounded by this many fans is very, very, very surreal, and I don't take it lightly because I am an MCU fan, a massive, massive Marvel fan, both the comics and the films, and so I feel as though when I'm at these things, I'm really with my people. It's really fun. I'm very anxious to see how people feel about it because we've gone so left field from what Marvel has done before, and the fact that this is a story told from a woman's point of view by women on both sides of the camera means it's very, very authentic, and we don't pull any punches, and we tell the truth in this show. One of my favorite things about the show is that She-Hulk is a reluctant hero. And I don't think we ever get to really see that. This is a woman who's really fighting against that responsibility and attention, and she just is good in spite of herself.
Now, I don't know about you guys, but me being a movie geek, TV geek, whatever you want to call us people, I love the concept of these things don't make themselves. They don't write themselves. There is a writing room. In a lot of these shows or movies, a whole group of people sit in a room and they like put ideas on the wall, they spitfire, they tell jokes, and they really, are involved. It's not just one person often just typing by themselves and going, here's a script. And this is the interview that we don't often get to hear about. The head writer's up next, and she's going to talk about the writing room, about just getting paid to make each other laugh, and the ham that happened to be there. And I just love this kind of stuff. And I've mentioned this many times before. I'm being redundant, but I'm going to say it again. That's the kind of show I want to see. I'm not a huge reality show person, and to each their own. I'm not knocking. It's just not my jam. But the kind of show I want to see is watching the process of a show being made. Show people in the writing room, showing them pitching ideas, showing it, going to the studio. Hey, I want this. We think this would be a great show. Watch the process. That would be so awesome to me. Watching it happen step by step, the successes, the failures. How about this line? How about that line? Just everybody working together. That would be like my dream reality show. If I was to watch one, that would be it. Well, I'll save, except for I do watch one. I'm not going to lie. I do watch The Curse of Oak Island. That's one of my guilty pleasures. I watch that every year. Oh, it's just I'm obsessed with that show. But I digress. But anybody out there in the world who knows anybody, make that show happen for people like us who love the behind the scenes stuff. Show the whole process between developing it and then making it, and then voila, here's a final product. That's just me because I love that stuff. Here's the head writer talking about the writing room.
A day in the life of a She-Hulk writer is a lot of fun and a lot of food, and then we try to fit in a little bit of work on top of that too. So our writers, we had a fantastic writing staff. We had such a fun writer's room where it really felt like cheating because we'd come in every day and just felt like we were getting paid to make each other laugh. We would mine the movies and the comics for characters and, storylines and inspiration that we wanted to use. But we also would mine each other's personal lives and personal experiences and stories to turn into content for the show. And then on top of all of that, there was the room ham, which is an entire leg of jamon serrano that we had in our writer's room. And my assistant, Yusong, and one of the writers, Zeb Wells, would take turns using this incredibly long knife to slice jamon serrano for everybody. And we would take ham breaks every single day in the afternoon. And that's really what kept us going. We went through 3 entire legs of jamon serrano.
I love that stuff. I know, maybe it's just me, but I dig it. Now, we're going to have several interviews from the red carpet. So I'm just going to play these one after another so you don't have to have me interrupt you because, I know what you're here for. You're there for them. You don't need me rambling. So this is the order they're going to go into or go from. First, we're going to have Tatiana. She's going to be talking about, all that stuff. And then we go on to the head writer. Then we go to the director. And within the director's interview, she talks about Wendy Jacobson, one of the producers of this film. After the director, you're going to hear from Wendy Jacobson. And after that, you're going to hear from the mastermind himself, Kevin Feige. Let it roll.
Getting to invite everybody into this show that was like, a thing that we did a year ago in Atlanta during COVID. So it was like, I don't know, it's just nice to get to share it with the group, with the community. It doesn't take itself seriously, and then it takes certain things very seriously. And I really love that combo. I think she'll be relatable because she's just incredibly flawed and bad at being a hero, and like doesn't fit her very well, but she's kind of thrust into this spotlight in a way that she struggles with, and I think any human struggle is compelling to watch, so I think people will relate to her in that sense.
It was really important to us that we made her feel like a real person first and foremost. She's not just any one thing. She's not just a badass. She's got thoughts and opinions. She's had life experience. She has highs and lows and strengths and weaknesses. And there are times when she's confident and times when she's embarrassed and times when she has anxiety. Like, we really tried to ground her so that she really felt like somebody you would know, or maybe just yourself. This really feels familiar to me because I come from TV comedy, but it's completely uncharted territory for Marvel, which is always really nice, being able to kind of, I feel like there was kind of a mutual pushing into uncharted territory on both sides.
This is the culmination of years of work, and I could not be more excited. And seeing all the fans lined up on Hollywood Boulevard is just the most thrilling thing. It's what Marvel is really all about. Well, Wendy Jacobson is such a visionary, and she is the kind of unsung hero of this show because she hired all of us. And it was really her vision to see this show through the female lens. And I'm just so grateful that she was in charge of it all and that she brought me along for the ride. I love everything that Marvel makes, and so to me, my job was really about like bringing something that had a fresh comedic take, but making sure it slotted right into the MCU. And I think I'm just most excited about people seeing the dynamics, which unlike most big Marvel projects, are very simple and human and relatable.
I've been working on this show for a very long time, 3 years since I started at Marvel. Not actually shooting the show and stuff, but the development and reading the comics, and it's so crazy to think of how far we've come and all the ideas that we had for the show before we even hired Jessica writing it, and so happy with the finished product, and it's been an amazing labor of love, and I can't wait to share it with the world. I feel very lucky to have the cast and crew that we have put together, and it's been very important from the beginning to have a lot of female voices on this show, including the writers' room, where the majority of the writers were women. We were all sharing our stories about our families, our jobs, our dates. There's a lot of inspiration for bad dates in this show. And, I think that all carried over also into the hiring. We have 2 female directors, our production designer, our costume designer, our huge cast, and I think it really lends itself to having all those voices go into the show and make it feel really authentic, and I hope really relatable for audiences as well.
I feel like we talk a lot about what Disney Plus has enabled us to do at Marvel Studios is to bring all sorts of different types of shows to the screen. No show sort of embodies that more than She-Hulk Attorney at Law. Even that title, She-Hulk Attorney at Law. This is a lawyer, legal comedy, very much in the tonal, taking tonal inspiration from Dan Slott's famous run of She-Hulk comics, and going back to John Byrne's amazing fourth wall breaking run of She-Hulk, and using all of that to hopefully bring something to Disney Plus that people haven't seen before, certainly not from Marvel Studios. Our actor, Tatiana, is so incredible and brings so much range to it, and kind of set her career sights on being this lawyer, and then became a Hulk, but still wants to be this lawyer, and kind of doesn't want to have it all. She just wants to keep focusing on a career, and not this other thing that's happened to her because her cousin happened to be in a car with her when she got into a car accident. And that's where a lot of the humor comes from, and that's where a lot of the emotion comes from of this woman's story, that she doesn't, even the label of She-Hulk is something that we get into on the show, which I think is a lot of fun.
Now, if you hadn't known what sets Kevin Feige apart from so many other architects of movies and franchises, you just heard it there. The guy's educated, he's passionate, and he loves the projects he's working on. Can you even imagine where the Marvel Universe would be without him? It's his vision, and he has sculpted and created so much to this world. Is unbelievable. Can you just imagine in his office all the notes, information, files of where he's going with this whole universe? So many movies, TV shows, you name it. He is in charge. He is focused. I mean, can you imagine sitting down with this man and just talking about all these projects? Because like earlier in that interview, he was talking about each individual comic, because as you probably understand, I don't know a lot about the comic world at all, but what I do know is this: often different people write different versions. Like, let's say in the 1980s, author A did a storyline, then a few years later, author B did another storyline. He's aware of all these different storylines and how to just interweave them into a TV show, movie, or whatever he does. The guy is truly a mastermind. And I know people overuse that word genius, and maybe that's not the case, but the man has focus and he has a vision. And that's what sets him apart. And most importantly, I think, truly, is the passion. And you can just hear it in his interviews. It's just wonderful to hear. And I don't know about you guys, but I have really enjoyed She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. It's funny, it's smart, it's original, and there's so many elements that just makes this so unique. Breaking the fourth wall, all that kind of stuff in Breaking the Fourth Wall. Just in case you didn't know, I'm not trying to talk down to anybody, but when they say break the fourth wall, that's when they speak to us watching, kind of like Ferris Bueller did in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, those kind of things. I just love that. It just makes you just feel part of the whole show. I could go on, but I'll just leave that up to you. Like I said, here's the evidence. You make up your own mind, but give the show a shot. If you're into that kind of stuff at all, I think you'll really enjoy this. It's not like all your other kinds of superhero type shows or movies. Now, I hope you enjoyed our in-depth look at She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. Now, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to contact me, cinemajudge@hotmail.com. I can't grow if I don't know. Please let me know what I'm doing good or not so good, because that's what I want. More, if you guys are, tell me what I'm doing good or how I can do better or whatever, feel free just to let me know, guys. I'd love to hear your feedback. But now you know what time it is. It's shout out time. For all you all around the world, I hope my voice finds you well. What I do here is this. I just thank the people who listened to my last episode, and I just really appreciate you taking time out of your life. No matter how you listen to the show, driving to work, driving home from work, sitting at home, whatever you're doing, wherever, whenever, or whatever you're doing, this is for you. All my listeners from the United States, Tanzania, Australia, France, Mexico, thank you so very much. Minneapolis, Minnesota, Chicago, Illinois, Cottage Grove, Minnesota. Guys, I don't know if I should try to attempt this one, but I'll give it my best just because you took time out of your life to listen to the show. It's Dar es Salaam region. Oh, yeah, I know. I butchered that one all the way to the next place over. But to you guys, I had multiple listeners. Thank you so very much. St. Paul, Minnesota, Littleton, Colorado, Birmingham, Alabama, Ormond Beach, Florida, Farmington, Minnesota, Holyoke, Mass, Bendigo, Victoria, just to name a few. Every one of you, thank you so much. It means the world to me. Because wherever I am, I see that. I see a listen pop up. I just get ecstatic. But now, if you do listen to older episodes, you probably didn't hear me mention you here. Because that stuff's far more harder to track. And I do appreciate it, though. Because often during the week, I see, hey, somebody listened to an episode, 2 years ago or 3 weeks ago, whatever it is. Don't think I don't notice, because I do, and I am so grateful for your time. It's so cool. I want to thank an incredible group. So today's bourbon shout-out goes out to the incredible staff at the Purple store at the Mall of America. You know, the people who sell purple, beds. These guys are top-notch. They're intelligent. They're knowledgeable. They're professional. They're kind. They're helpful and patient. Because trying to deal with somebody like me, it's never easy, guys. But these guys didn't blink. They were always there, answered every question I had. If any other business out there wants to know, how do you run a great store? Go to the Purple store at the Mall of America. These guys are top-notch, professional. The world could learn a lot from that group right there. And some of the people that I dealt with that were just, again, unbelievable. Daniel, Tanya, Hannah, Jamare, and Jason. Every one of you helped out. Again, you guys are incredible. Thanks for everything you did for me. And you just made me feel so comfortable. So to each and every one of you at the Purple store at the Mall of America, cheers. But now you might be asking yourself, what was I listening to when I was making this TV version, which becomes this podcast version? Well, let me tell you, I was all over the map on this one. I was in a groove. I was just really feeling it. I was listening to Five for Fighting, ELO, Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, Dr. Hook, and Tobias Jesso Jr. Like I said, I was all over the place, but every one of those just is awesome stuff. If you haven't listened to any of those guys in a while, give them a shot. That's Five for Fighting, ELO, Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, Dr. Hook, and Tobias Jesso Jr. It'll be worth your time. Trust me. Now, in that same vein of trust me, I have my next guilty pleasure. Sometimes I do this little segment, sometimes I don't. But this week, one of my guilty pleasures that I watched was the movie called Book of Love. In a nutshell, here's the story. This guy from England somewhere, he writes a book. It's like a love story type thing. But it's totally tanking everywhere. But then they find out it's doing massive business in Mexico. But then they come to realize the reason why it's doing so great was because the woman who translated it to Spanish made it a really, really hot version. And the guy he wrote like one of the boringest versions. But no, this woman always wanted to be a writer, but she's been working hard her whole life and she's never had a shot. So what she did was she turned it into a hot and steamy, romance book. And he's just like, what? He's all stuffy and uptight, all that kind of stuff. And it's just one of those stories where total opposites and all kinds of shenanigans ensue. Again, it's a guilty pleasure. But if you want to watch something just fun like that, it's called Book of Love. It's on Amazon Prime. Well, that's it. My glass is full. I'm thirsty. So cheers to you and to the movies. So until next time, be well, be good, and I'm gone. I'm Jeff. Thanks for listening to The Cinema Judge.